Everyone's favorite Nightfall is back. X's Crash is the master Nightfall for this week. And you either hate this Nightfall or you really hate this Nightfall. And I kind of stay right between both of those, especially if the pikes catch me off guard, which they can easily do. So before we even get into this guy, I need you to know something. Respect everything in this Nightfall, because even on master, it can still mess you up. But more than respect everything in this Nightfall, respect the pikes. The pikes don't play, man. It doesn't matter that you slayed Oryx, that you killed a god, that you struck down Vex Lords. It doesn't matter. That one dreg on that pike will insta-shred you, which is why, especially in the beginning portions of this Nightfall, guys, don't rush it. Take your time and 1v3 that pike. And if you catch yourself in a situation where you have to go 1v1 with that pike, run. With that being said, the Nightfall loot for this week is Izumi as well as Plug 1. By the way, Plug 1, one of the best fusion rifles in the game currently, and we will be breaking down fusion rifles this week before Trials comes out, because I do think you're going to be seeing more fusion rifles inside of PvP, especially this week when Trials launches. And Izumi, of course, despite what Les may say on stream, is considered one of the best sniper rifles in the energy slot. And I actually landed a good roll today. We will be reviewing that sniper rifle as well. I know, we're kind of a season late, fellas. We're slow, man. With that being said, I'm going to give you a couple ways of doing today's Nightfall. There's going to be slow and steady, but guaranteed, or for the most part, guaranteed. And then there's going to be the more optimal method, but it's a little riskier. Not necessarily on the front end of the Nightfall, but on the back end for sure. So timestamps to both of those are on the screen right now, guys. But let's go with the slow and steady first. The slow and steady first is essentially what we've always done in the past, which is Ursa Furiosa and Middle Tree Sentinel with our banner shield, blocking everything that comes at us. Super beneficial in the boss room itself, as you can caddy yourself in a corner and just sit there and just block the boss and keep them from destroying you and your team. Combine that with other super regenerating exotics like Phoenix Protocol and Well of Radiance. Are these exotics nerfed? Yes. But are they still good? Absolutely. The difference between now and what they previously used to do is that their super regeneration is pretty much capped at 50%. However, having somebody there topping your super off with Orbs of Light or Orbs of Power will pretty much give you and net you a super back pretty frequently. Now, back in the day, I would say you could get away with not rocking high intellect, especially when using things like Ursa Furiosa. However, I would suggest now definitely rocking higher intellect just to trim down that super regeneration time. Now, the modifiers for this week's Nightfall is, of course, Arachno. Defeated Fallen Vandals spawn a web mine at their feet. We also have Overload Champions and Barrier Champions. Togetherness, which states that base health regeneration is reduced if near another player, health regeneration is increased. So you definitely want to stay on top of each other, guys. You also have Match Game, Champions Mob, and of course, Davix Implant, incoming arc and environmental damage, which is why I definitely suggest guys rocking Arc Resist for a number of reasons, for dealing with the Pikes, the Vandals, also a Concussive Damner mod if you want, but in the least, rocking Arc Resist mod. Now, for those that don't know, Middle Tree Sentinel, when you block, produces this banner shield. And this banner shield for your teammates not only protects them, but it actually increases their damage by 35%. It's very, very nice. But when you combine it there with Ursa Furiosa, all the damage that you are guarding against converts to super energy when the super ends. This is why you're able to pop banner shields pretty much back to back if you have someone feeding you orbs. The main thing about Ursa Furiosa and banner shield, when you pop your super and you block, you need to be standing outside of the Well of Radiance. Say for instance, if you're both back to back popping on each other, stand outside of the Well of Radiance, because the well conflicts with the guarding of Ursa Furiosa and the conversion there for the super energy. So you want to stand at the front of the Well of Radiance. Simultaneously, whoever it is that's rocking Phoenix Protocol with Well of Radiance needs to be careful, as that super regeneration there that you get with Phoenix Protocol is also capped at 50%, as kills and assists that you make while standing in your Well of Radiance return super energy. But if you happen to pick up a bulk of orbs while standing in that Well of Radiance and you reach that 50% cap, Phoenix Protocol will not net you any more super energy. It will be capped at 50%. So ideally, you want to make sure whoever it is rocking Ursa Furiosa, because they're just going to be pooping out orbs behind them, kind of stay somewhat of a distance away from them if you can. Get the most that you can out of Phoenix Protocol and its super regeneration. Then as your Well of Radiance begins to run out, proceed to pick up the orbs. This is very important, guys, because chaining supers is the game here with this slow and steady method. And when I say slow and steady, I mean it may be a couple minutes longer than the more optimal strats, but it keeps your team safe. And that's the main thing. This is a Nightfall, especially when we get into the Grandmaster portion of it later in the season. This Nightfall right here is super punishing, even if you mess up once, especially in that boss room. Now, let me go ahead and give you a couple of tips on using Ursa Furiosa in this Nightfall before we get into weapon selections and all that other stuff. This room is pretty much one of the main rooms in this Nightfall outside of the boss room. Now, you notice that we're standing on the platform and popping Ursa Furiosa here, and all the ads are kind of like feeding to us, but there are some ads getting around my banner shield. In the past, and this is something we're going to do more in the Grandmaster Nightfall, you can get away with it here in the Master, is when you pop your banner shield, you really want to back all the way up to the hallway, because the hallway pulls all the enemies right there to the middle on you. And that's ideally what you want to do in this room. Again, you can get away with not doing that here with the Master Nightfall, but in the Grandmaster, for sure, you want to be backed up in that hallway and blocking from there. This makes sure that all enemies are directly in front of you and are doing full damage to Ursa. But essentially, guys, back to back, chain your supers, and whoever your third is, they can pretty much rock whatever super they want. Like Les was rocking Lucky Pants with Ariana's Vow. That's a great combination. You can use it here. However, again, Lucky Pants, when it comes to energy weapons, you have to have a matching energy weapon with the subclass energy type that you're using. So he was doing things like Blade Barrage with Ariana's Vow and Lucky Pants. Now, in the boss room, our favorite spot to get at in this room is in this little cubby right here. Now, it used to be a lot easier in the past because Ursa Furiosa wasn't nerfed and you could pretty much pop supers back to back. However, now you gotta be kind of smart with it, guys, especially for my other people that are popping supers. In the past, you didn't really have to stagger your supers as much. You can kind of just pop it as you go, and the exotics themselves would make up for your timing or lack of. Now, though, you really do have to get your timing right, especially whoever it is that's your third. Whether they're rocking Chaos Reach, Blade Barrage, or some other super regenerating exotics, they definitely have to be feeding you orbs and feeding you orbs between your supers. And we even found something that gave us a little bit of extra forgiveness here, was actually having less rock Invis and just making us go Invis. If we get into a situation where we got overwhelmed, which can easily happen in this Nightfall, being able to throw a smoke down and allow your teammates to go Invis can keep you safe. And again, there's a little box, a little cubby here that you can jump up on that you're not necessarily safe from everything, but you're at least safe from that arc damage from the floor. And for the most part, if you have to, you can pop up there and throw some invis while sitting on those boxes. Again, this is something that we didn't necessarily perfect. There was a lot of times it got pretty dicey, pretty sketchy there toward the end. But again, Ursa Furiosa, Well of Radiance, if you chain those supers together and you get your timing down, you really won't have that much downtime between supers. Now, this was the slow and steady. And weapon-wise, you've probably been seeing me using La Monarch. Hands down, one of the best weapons for dealing with overload champions is La Monarch for the consistent stuns that it produces, as well as the long-term stuns, as it can almost re-stun them when they come out of their stunts. So I highly advise somebody on your fire team rocking La Monarch. But for our more optimal strat, this one was more optimal as in we got to the boss room faster, but again, in the boss room, things were a little dicey. And I highly advise, if you don't have Ursa Furiosa and Well of Radiance, to at least rock things like Invis to get around this room and escape harm's way. Now, a couple of things that we're doing here. Number one, Les and Bombad both are rocking 1,000 voices. Now, 1,000 voices is really good this season for a lot of reasons. Number one, fusion rifles overall synergize so well with artifact mods. Number two, particle deconstruction, where it allows your fusion rifle and linear fusion rifles to deal extra damage through the debuff, and it stacks up to 5 times, is able to be immediately applied from 1,000 voices. And it absolutely shreds champions. You'll see it right here. Pretty much 2 shots of 1k voices insta kills a champion. The only downside of 1,000 voices is the ammo economy is kind of piss poor, which is why I think exotics like Aeon Swifts or just Aeon Gauntlets in general with Sect of Insight is the exotic that elevates 1k voices even more. A Sect of Insight, when you finish a champion, it produces heavy ammo. Now, is it that much fun being the guy that produces ammo for your team? Not necessarily. I get stuck with this job every single time. I wish I didn't get stuck with it, but somebody's got to play support. And Aeon Gauntlets with Sect of Insight allows for your teammates to always have 1,000 voices as long as you're getting finishes off on champions. The only thing that you need to make sure, though, is that when you go to finish a champion, your teammates have to be alive. If they're dead, they will not get the ammo. And some other things that we've shown in the past, there is a difference in finisher speed. Literally, the animation itself allows you to get in and get the finish off faster. One of my favorite finishers in the game is Sure Shot. Sure Shot is one of the fastest finishers in the game. It immediately allows me to get the finish off, and the timing used to be a major problem when it came to Anarchy, because if Anarchy happened to finish the champion off before you got your finisher off, the game would not count that as a finishable kill, thus not producing heavy ammo for your team. I highly advise though, even in this sandbox, even in Master Nightfalls, to still take advantage of Reactive Pulse. This mod gives you a free overshield while performing your finisher. All you have to do is satisfy that arc requirement, and normally you can offset that by just rocking either Powerful Friends or Radiant Light, or even both of those in other slots, as it will count towards that arc requirement for that overshield. Now, considering I'm kind of like committing here to the support role, I'm still taking advantage of Le Monarch. I'm at least getting some stuns off on enemies. I really like using this with either the Revenant class, which is really good, especially if your teammates are rocking Focusing Lens. And by the way, Focusing Lens does work for Well of Radiance and weapon damage. Again, it states that your light abilities do bonus damage to combatants affected by stasis. But if everybody is rocking Focusing Lens, and say I throw Stacy out there and she's applying stasis damage to everything around us, when Bombad drops a Well of Radiance, as long as we're standing in that well, our weapon damage is increased from Focusing Lens. I know it's not a light ability, but because we are standing in a Well of Radiance and the enemies are being affected by stasis, it satisfies that requirement for Focusing Lens to proc, allowing us to deal even more damage. Now granted, I have not actually tested to see how much more damage, I'm purely going off of what chat was telling me, but I believe chat. So that's essentially the optimal strat. I'm stunning champions, I'm producing ammo, Bombad less both are rocking 1K voices and absolutely shredding. The only downside of this is at the end, when we actually go and start dealing with the boss, it gets a little sketchy. Because again, guys, you don't have an Ursa Furiosa to block the boss and the number of ads that are trying to swarm you. Granted, you can move a little more, but again, this room can get extremely hectic, which is why I was trying to rock stasis with it. There are a number of ways in which you can control this room. A Revenant Super popped at the right and optimal time, most notably when you see the barrier champions spawn and they get close to you. You want to make sure you pop that when they get close to you. And this room right here is deceptive. You may be like, oh, this looks like a lot of ads around me, I should probably pop my super. No, you'll know it when you need to pop your super. When ads are all up in you, you know that's when you need your super. And there was multiple times that we would just mess up on our timing, but wait for those ads and those barrier champions to get close to you, almost on top of you, and then pop your Revenant Super or your Shade Binder or whatever. And again, for my people that are rocking offensive light-based ability subclasses and you want to synergize it with Focusing Lens, let whoever it is pop their stasis super first. Say for instance a Revenant, and let stasis kind of get its sweep in and apply stasis to all the enemies before you pop your super yourself. There was multiple times today that Les was messing up, was popping his super way before I even popped my stasis abilities, therefore defeating the purpose of even rocking Focusing Lens. So you want to make sure here, guys, especially when you rock all these mods, that you're taking advantage of them. They're good, and you better get used to them, fellas, because these mods are going to be with us for the next 6 months. Now, was 1K voices the best weapon here? For this boss, I would say it's very good. We did damage tests the other day. Things like Threaded Needle, and of course, Reed's Regret when it starts dropping for us in Trials this Friday are definitely the best damage dealers overall, but you have to land crits. There's one thing to say about this boss, he moves a lot, which is why 1K voices is so good. The only time 1K voices was detrimental to us is when the boss reaches a third of its health. And that's because the boss likes to get right up against you and melee you. This is of course a problem for 1000 voices, as 1000 voices does explosive damage that also does self damage, thus meaning it may kill you. So long story short, when you reach that third of his health, you want to kick it in overdrive with those 1000 voices and shred him down as quickly as you can. And by the way, you cannot push this boss off the platform. We tried multiple times. It just doesn't work. So guys, that is our guide here for this Nightfall. Slow and steady and optimal. Take advantage of things like Focusing Lens, Particle Deconstruction for my people rocking 1K voices or other fusion rifles. Love Monarch, in my eyes, is still the best weapon when it comes to dealing with overload champions. And if you happen to be rocking 1K voices or pretty much any power weapon that consumes a lot of heavy or maybe just has bad heavy economy, give Aeon Gauntlets a go. As for Ursa Furiosa and other super regenerating exotics, I think they're still very good. It just requires whoever it is that's using those exotics to be a little more conscious of their super regeneration and to take note of where orbs are located when they're produced. But if you can nail the timing down, you can perfect this Nightfall. So guys, good luck. Again, the most dangerous thing of this Nightfall are pikes. That's the most dangerous thing. If you can beat the pikes, works, you can pretty much beat everything else. So good luck. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.